In my new quest to become an RPG legend, I decided it was time to improve my knowledge level and dive into an MMO classic that has been on my radar for a long time. Of course, I'm talking about Lord of the Rings Online, the game that is currently reaching its 18th anniversary, and I've wanted to at least give it a try for an hour or so. Mainly because, as I was growing up, I got to watch The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, and a personal thing of mine was that I wanted to visit places such as Erebor or Mordor in an MMO environment or just in a game in general, which granted I probably wouldn't be able to do in this short time span, but at least I gave the game a try. So in a Saturday night at 4 am, I decided it was time to install and try out the game because certainly I had nothing better to do. I booted the game to a very nice cutscene and instantly got into character creation. There were a lot of races and classes to choose from, but I decided I was going to be a dwarf, the correct and only choice, and play as a hunter because I had been craving that ranged playstyle for quite some time now. As I got into the game, the graphics immediately put me into a sort of comfortable state, as these textures and environments are so reminiscent of old games and MMOs that you can immediately feel that they have a lot of story to tell and have been home to huge communities that are now far gone. Right after that philosophical realization, I talked to Gandalf, who walked me to some dwarven companions while spouting about what I'm guessing is the literal beginning plot to The Hobbit. Right after this small introduction, the game gave me some starting gear and threw me right into the action. Something I quite appreciated, as I didn't have to wait for hours of exposition until actually trying something out. I tried a bit of the combat, which is your standard tap targeting combat, similar to games like WoW or Final Fantasy XIV, and since I am used to it, I didn't have any problems at all. I then proceeded to spend an ungodly amount of time lost inside the first quest area of the game because for some reason I got confused and thought a ramp with a rocky texture was a wall. Soon after, as I proceeded through the cave, a dwarven brother gets tapped by trying to 1v1 a troll triple his size. I make my way through the caverns, finding some sort of old ruins through the way, until coming face to face with the troll again, where Gandalf shows off all his pay-to-win skills and one tap mocks the troll into a stone form. Short note here to say, I miss loading screens like this because they are so charismatic and well put together. After that, we finally get thrown into the world. I accept a few quests and wander off to take a look at some of the vistas of Lord of the Rings Online. And I have to say, I was genuinely impressed. As someone who likes RPGs on the older side, this feels and looks very nice for me, both artistically and nostalgically, for reasons I mentioned in the beginning of this video. The beginner experience of Lord of the Rings Online is exactly what you would expect. After getting put into this opening area, you get quests that range from moving from A to B to talk with certain NPCs, practicing your abilities with your designated class trainer, and so on and so on. After leveling up, I got to choose between 3 different specs for my class, which gives you some customization options on the playstyle side of things, and I decided to go for a more range-oriented sniper-like playstyle with the Bowmaster spec, used my one and only point, and went on my way. The following minutes were spent doing your menial MMO tasks and getting smaller but significant gear upgrades, until I looped around and got back to that starting cave again, where I finally got the opportunity to fight some more monsters. One thing I really liked about this game is the fact that the loot you get from mobs you kill gets put in a placeholder instead of being immediately thrown into your bags, letting you pick and choose through what you actually want to carry and bring with you instead of filling up your inventory with stuff you don't need nor want. By this point I was already level 4 and I was feeling pretty comfortable with the game, as it didn't deviate too much from what I was expecting in terms of moment to moment gameplay. I sold some of my loot I got from doing all the quests up until that point, checked my class trainer to see if it had any new abilities for me, and got back to questing. It was also around this time that I found that this game has no fall damage. Instead, it has bone breaking, so I found myself jumping out of huge cliffs from time to time, just to end up limping for a few seconds and moving on like nothing ever happened, which I found immensely funny. I did more fetch and killing quests along my way up until I reached Freren's court, and this is where I started to see some very odd things. As I approached the NPC that had a quest for me, I noticed there were extra quests I could pick up titled A Little Extra Never Hurts, which gives me a mount. Awesome, I thought. It was then and there that I realized that the quest was a tutorial to introduce the web store to players. And so it happened. I got flashed by what looked to be something straight out of a mobile game. A store so egregious that it even sold running speed boosts, which if you, as a game, are selling, you must really be desperate. So I did the intro quest that gave me 10 of the premium currency and used those same 10 points to then buy or unlock the second quest, which in return gave me the promised mount. This was something that really rubbed me off the wrong way because I'm not really sure on how I feel about a game even having the ability to lock things like quests behind individual paywalls. Not even an expansion, but individual quests. I'm not sure if this has happened throughout the history of this game, but my feelings still stand. All that out of the way, I pressed on, now on my steady yet goofy horse. I kept on questing, doing what you could probably expect, such as killing, fetching, and collecting. This questing went on for what I'd like to say were a steady 40 minutes, but I wasn't really bored by it as I was genuinely enjoying my time doing quests in an MMO I had never experienced before. The next interesting and relevant thing that happened was this cutscene with Galadriel in which she talks to us in a dream telling us how important we are going to be for the future of the in-game story, basically setting up the entire run of the MMO for the player. We even get to see a little bit of action with Gandalf versus the Balrog, which was honestly pretty cool. It's little things like these that at the time these MMOs came out really got players engaged and made them stick with the game through to the end, to see what it had to offer. The last part of this sort of tutorial zone put us in a dungeon with AI companion called Skorgrim's Tomb. This was probably one of the things I enjoyed most out of the introduction as it put together all of the elements we had experienced up until now. The dungeon itself had a very cool design that was very much reminiscent out of Lord of the Rings itself, which is a must if you're doing a game based on an IP this famous. For an intro dungeon, I was also surprised that it featured this much dialogue and environment interaction, with things happening besides just mindless mob killing, that being one of the reasons I enjoyed it so much, as it managed to properly mesh world building with gameplay elements, which a lot of early dungeons in MMOs tend to fail when trying to do so. I cleared my way through the dungeon as the Giga Shed Hunter I was destined to be and reached Thorin's Gates, which despite being the zone where supposedly you start your big adventure, it's where I decided to end mine for the time being. To give some final thoughts out of the game, I feel like it's hard to say if the game aged well or poorly because from playing it for around 1.5 hours, it really didn't feel like the game aged at all. That is to say that throughout my experience, I never felt like I was playing a game that had evolved in any way, shape or form to adapt to the current times, which is something that is up to the game's fanbase and new players to decide if it's a good thing or not. It's also due to things like these being set in place for so long that I think the game probably suffered, as I can't imagine that the online shop was a great success 18 years ago, where players were much more vocal against monetization being done like this. Nevertheless, I don't think this is a game I would play for a long time. I would certainly enjoy getting a character to max level just to truly explore the other zones the game has to offer, but as it stands, there are many more and better options out there for MMO fans. That being said, I am glad I finally got to try this. As it's customary, make sure to like and subscribe if you're interested in more MMO and RPG content, as we have a lot of that coming your way. And leave a comment to tell me your opinions on the video or the game we discussed today. But other than that, this has been the Retro Den, and I'm out.